So this lecture is going to be an advanced example. In fact, it's going to be very advanced. So don't worry if you're not able to capture it in the first go. Once you practice it yourself, of course, you will get more comfortable with it. But do remember that when you try to utilize this approach in your own data sets, it will not be simple. It will require quite a little bit of effort, not hit and try, but you will really have to understand how to work with it. So again, reiterating, this example is going to be very difficult, but I still want to show it to you because if you're working with complicated models, then this can really help you. So I will write the VLOOKUP like we did in the first lecture. So we write G4, we select C4 E13, and then we say column index number is 3, and then finally we are doing an exact match. Now think of it this way. We always know that the first value is in C4. I also know that the last column is column number E. The only part which is changing is this 13. Makes sense, right? So for example, if I have two more names that I add, for example, if I'm adding Havish, what is happening here is that the 13 is going to become 14. So in a way, if you break down the VLOOKUP formula, you would say that $C $4 colon $E dollar is a constant, and the 13 is not a constant, but it is a dynamic parameter, which means that it constantly keeps on changing as more and more records get added. So what I want to do here is to write indirect. In fact, I'll explain the formula to you once outside the main formula, and then we will make it a part of the original formula. So we say indirect. Now it says what is the reference text. So the reference text we can say $C and then $4. We want to concatenate, so we're using the ampersand. We want to add a colon, another ampersand, and then we want to write a $sign, and then finally we want to write 13. Okay, I think I left something out, so we have left out E. So it should be $C $4 colon $E and 13. If you're having trouble understanding the formula, just put some spaces between every single ampersand and this will become a little easier. Remember, inside Excel, you are allowed to put spaces between different arguments of a formula. Like I've done here, after every single part that I have written, I have put 3 spaces. You can put as many spaces as you want. So what we've done here is we have taken $C $4 as part 1, the colon is part 2, $E is part 3, and then finally 13 is part 4. And the moment we press enter, what will happen is that it gives us the result of C3 to E13. I hope that makes sense. Now do remember that this is only working on my system because I'm working with Microsoft 365. So remember, only works with Microsoft 365. So if you guys are working on Office 13, 10, 16, 19, this might not work on your computers. Not to worry. Make sure to write the same formula that I've written. But what we have established is the fact that once we use indirect, we can now combine these 4 parts and make it one single unit. So I'm simply going to copy this entire thing, come back to my original VLOOKUP formula, and then rather than writing C4 E13, I'm going to replace that with my indirect formula. Now you notice that we are still getting the same result. So just take a moment and look at this. You can see that everything is the same. We're writing G4. In fact, I'll break my formula into 4 lines. If you want to break your formula into 4 lines, remember you can simply press Alt Enter after a comma. As you can see, after 3 and after the comma, I'm pressing Alt Enter, and that breaks my formula into multiple lines. This is very handy, especially when you're working with long and complicated formulas like the one with which we are working right now. Okay, so G4 is my lookup value, nothing special here. 3 is my column number, and then false is my type of lookup. And the only difference here is that rather than writing C4E13, we have made the 13 free. This means that the number 13 is in our control, and we can somehow get the number using another formula. Now think of it. How do we find out that the last record is in the 13th row? Now I know that there are 11 values in column E. So from E3 till E13, there are 11 values. Plus there are 2 blank cells at the top. So very smartly, we will count the number of values in column E, which remember is going to come as 11. But we don't need the number 11, right? We need 13. So we want to do a plus 2 here. Again, if you notice, we are getting the same result. But here's the best part. Tomorrow, when another record gets added, obviously, the count will not come as 11, it will come as 12. And because we're adding 2, it will become 14. And again, my range will not be C4, E13, it will become C4 and E14. Let me prove it to you. So let's say we are adding one more name. Let's add consumer, and I'm adding 200. Now watch this very carefully. I'm going to copy this formula all the way down. Now, when we add Havish, did you see this? It is smartly able to pick up the new name that I've added, and this will work every single time. For example, if I'm adding one more name, you notice the moment that name gets added, we can get the result as well. Now I know what a lot of you are thinking. You might be wondering, why am I overcomplicating such a simple topic for you? Now see, this is not something you will use every single time. As a matter of fact, even I don't use it every single time I have to use a VLOOKUP. There are very specific instances wherein using an indirect is going to help you. Typically, when you're working with a model, especially a financial model, you don't want to choose a table or a range reference or choose the entire column. But you want the function to be dynamic and pick up exactly the number of rows that you require. And that is the specific instance wherein using an indirect is going to be very, very handy. And see, if you really break it down, it's not really very difficult. We're simply concatenating $C, which is my column, $4 is my row, colon, then we have $E, which is my column, and then another number, which is the last row of my data set. And why are we using an indirect function here? Because we don't want the result to simply be a result, right? So we don't want $C, $4, colon, $E, and $15 to be a string. We want that to be a result. So just so that you are very, very clear with this, if I write E5 and I write equal to E5, before I press enter, just think to yourself, what do you think the result would be? Would it give me E5 as a result, or would it give me the value from E5, which is 271, as a result? So take a moment and think about it. Now I know when we have written E5, one would expect that why is it not going to E5 and giving us a result from E5? The reason is that because E5 can be both a cell reference and a normal string, Excel doesn't understand what we want. So if you notice, it is simply giving us a result written in G16, which is E5. But the moment I say that I want to go indirectly to the value written in G16, which is E5, what will happen is that Excel will go to G16, but because we have written the indirect function, it doesn't show me the value from E5, but it actually goes to the cell E5 and it brings me the number from there. Fundamentally, this is how an indirect function works. An indirect allows you to tell Excel that the cell that you have written as a string is not actually a string, it is a cell value. And that is what we have done here. So if you notice, if I come here and I remove the indirect, then my formula will absolutely crash and we will not get a result at all. And why is this happening? Because the moment I say that all of this has to be concatenated, think about what the result is going to be. The result is going to be $C, $4, $E, $15. But this is a text because it is coming inside double quotes. Excel is not able to understand that this is supposed to be a cell reference. And how do we convert this into a cell reference? Very simple, by using the indirect function. So that would be the end of this example. Very, very powerful. If you are interested in pursuing a career in data analytics, if you want to work with data cleaning, maybe build some models, learning indirect is imperative. I have spent a lot of time on this. I would want you all to go back to the drawing board, work with this example, work with a few others as well, and make sure that you are super clear with this topic. Do remember that indirect will not really be used for the rest of this course. This is a standalone topic that I wanted to cover right now, but it is a wonderful topic nevertheless. And if you're interested in it, then I would strongly urge you to spend some time and then learn it properly. I will see you for the next lecture.